Hello everyone and welcome back. Today I thought I would show something that I get a lot of questions about, which is how to make these cute little loop shapes. They're the same shape. They are just, this one's manipulated from the inside out and that one's the inside in. And then this one I've done on a comb. You can do it either way. This is with a husking board and this is with a comb. I'm going to show you both of those. This one is really pretty if you outline a shape with it. And I've done it in two-tone paper, which I thought was sort of unique. And it just gives a nice little lacy type border on items. So I wanted to show that as well. It's the same basic shape as these two, but I've done it on a comb instead because it's not always necessary to buy a husking board depending upon what you want to use it for. I'm not big on my husking board. I don't use it a lot, but when I do make this shape, sometimes it is kind of handy because you can choose the spacing a little differently than you can on a comb. So with that in mind, that's where we're going today. And I'm going to just dive right in. So the first thing that you want to do is decide how far apart you want your loops. And the wonderful thing about the husking board is it has lots of options. You can do each individual hole or you can spread it out if you like. But we're gonna go in a V pattern to produce this so that when I do go to shape them, that they won't be distorted. So I like to start on an outside edge. The first thing you're going to do is make a loop. And I just find that I'm better at making one around a comb. You can use one of these to fold your paper over and make a loop if you'd like, but I just personally prefer this method. There's no really hard and fast rule, so it's whatever you're comfortable with. So just a little bit of glue, and I'm going to hold it in place until it's nice and stuck. And then one of the things that you can also do, I'm going to show you a couple of things. You can glue it all the way around each time, or you can just glue the center section. And I've shown this before on some of my videos, and I just wanted to highlight this one because I still get a lot of questions about it, and I'm not sure that people watch videos all the way through. So I thought I would just do this particular one because, again, a lot of questions. So, all right. So I like to start on one side so that my center isn't the middle. If you start in the center and you go out, you're not always going to end up with the same number of loops on each side. So I like to start on the first one that's going this direction. And this is going to be my center point, but this will be my first loop. Okay? So you're going to wrap around your bottom corner. This is going to be your pivot point for every single pass. Okay, so we're going to pull the paper straight up. We're going to put another peg in, and then we're going to curve back the other direction. Now, just for it to be fast, I'm just going to glue on the pivot point each time. I actually prefer to glue all the way through because it keeps it steady when you're ready to pull it off, but just to be fast, I'm going to do it this way. So now I've pulled it all back up around my original looped peg, and I'm going to add another peg. Then I'm going to go back around, and I like to keep pushing it down as I go so that it's nice and even when I take it off the board. And then I'm just going to dot a little glue there. And again, I'm going to go all the way back around and in, add a peg, and go back the other direction. Pretty simple. The husking board is great, but again, it's an expense. If you aren't ready for it, you don't really have to do it. I'm going to show you how to do it on a comb as well. But it is a handy little tool, I will say. I just don't use it as often as some other quillers do because I am partial to the comb. I like to be able to do the comb work while I'm watching television or whatever. So, okay, then I'm gonna add another peg. One of the things about this type of shape is that it's so nice when it is nice and even. Sometimes when we do coils, we can't get every single piece even, and which is also a reason I like the comb work, but sometimes the beauty is in the irregularity of the shapes. But I like something that's kind of automatic from time to time, and I don't have to worry about it matching my other pieces, but to each his own. So for this particular one that I'm doing, what I'm kind of showing is I'm going to use it as a leaf. I really like this piece as a leaf. I think that it adds some interest. A lot of times when we do leaves on our florals, they tend to be a little bit boring. And this particular shape is so lovely as a leaf because you can give the entire piece some interest. It's one of those things you don't, maybe it's not the first thing that you notice, but when you really start looking at a piece, it is something to sort of give a little more interest. So we'll go one more pass. And that's going to be my last loop. And then I'm going to glue all the way around, so just so it's nice and sturdy and stays put. When I do husking board, when I'm home alone and I'm not videoing, I will actually hold my board in one hand. There's no hard and fast rule. I'm just, again, showing you with it on the table so that you can see. I actually hold mine and twist it around when I'm working on it just because it goes a little faster for me. And I can keep my strip nice and tight. Okay, precision is great, but I have to remember, and I have to always remind everyone that it is art, and precision is not always where beauty lies. So relax. If your stuff doesn't match up, don't worry. Enjoy what you did produce and be creative in how you use it. Okay, so there it is. And then all that's left to do is just to remove it. And I just simply slide my pegs out. You can also lift it if you prefer right off the pegs. Now, keep in mind, I only glued in the very center, so you have to be a little bit careful, and it's going to keep your loops a little more open if you don't glue all the way around each time. I prefer to glue around each time, but since we're doing this shape, it's not absolutely necessary. So what I do is I hold it in the center, and again, I just gently close the loops together, and I'm going to glue just the tips of these ones on the end. When I do this, I like to use my reverse action tweezers quite a bit because it will help keep this in place while the glue dries. Or you can pen it down to your board if you prefer. However, I like to do it this way so that I can move on to my next piece while this is drying. So there you go. So when this dries, I'm going to take some offset colors and wrap it just because it makes it a little more interesting. I see that a lot of pieces, and beginners make this mistake too, you try to conserve paper, so you maybe use 1 or 2 strips on each element, but the more paper that you add to it, the more sturdy it appears, and you can get creative about creating some depth there as well. So when a painter paints a picture, he doesn't use just one color, he uses many, many colors. So I want to make sure that you know that one of the things that's great about this is you can add as much or as little as you prefer, but I just like it to have a little bit more interest to it, so I do like to wrap them a couple of times. So when that dries, that's what I'll do with that. This one I created by bending the opposite direction. So it came off in a V like this, and I just simply closed the V. In this case, I did the opposite. I took the V and I moved it backwards so that the loops would be on the outside. That's really the only difference there. And then once I had it completed, I did a quick little loose coil and wrapped it into a teardrop shape and plucked it into the center. So I'm not going to redo that one, but I want to show it to you because it does give you some options as well. I think this is really cool. So if you were ever going to do fire, this would be a really cool one to put a whole bunch of these together in some reds and oranges. I think that would be really cool. I've never done it, but I have thought about it more than once. So there's so many things I want to quill and never have enough time. So let's see how that's going. Okay, that one looks pretty good. Now I don't pinch the center yet. I'm going to pinch what I wrap and leave my loops because I've worked so hard to make the pretty loops. I don't want to close them up. So to wrap, I'm only going to take a half a strip to wrap the outside. If I can find it there. Well, I'll make another one. You can use a full one if you'd like. I just didn't want it to be too thick of a color. I just wanted to give it just a little bit of, just a thin layer of color. You can do however you like and whatever makes you happy. So again, simple little technique. I'm assuming that you can understand or would realize that wrapping is exactly what it sounds like. So I just like to get started with a nice thin layer of glue because I don't like to get glue on my hands as I go because it can make your quill itself get dirty. And as I always say in my videos, keep a damp cloth on your workstation and keep your hands free of those little flecks of glue. It will make your piece so much better. Now I'm not going to glue every single layer, but I do like to glue the first one. So then I like to give it a little bit of pinch on the outside, and then that's the pinch I'll follow as I wrap. And it goes very quickly, and then we'll secure the ends. And I like doing the little half strip because I like to end where it's not going to be separate on the little point. I don't want to end on this edge. Okay, you can start on the edge, but you don't want to end there. Then I'm going to take a dark green and line on the outside. And I will put a comment on this video to tell you about the colors that I've used. Everybody that has watched my videos or seen my Facebook group, you know that I prefer the Little Circles brand of paper just for the quality and the variety of color. It's very rare to find a quilling paper supplier that offers the variety of color that Erin does, and she's also independently owned and it's woman owned, and so I like to patronize her if we possibly can. So again, I'm going to start on the edge, and then we're just going to, I'm going to glue down the first layer. This dark green is a little heavier paper, so I want to make sure that I get it secure so that it doesn't unwrap. And around we go. And again, I'm going to create a point on the end. And then we're going to finish away from the point. And these were just, again, half strips that I wrapped with. You can use any length you'd like. Okay, so there's your leaf. And if you wanted to create a little bit of interest, you can always create a little bit of a tip that's curved, just to give it a little bit of something. So there it is. There's one without the tip twisted in. And then we'll move on to this simple one on a comb. And I did this one on, this one's done on a two-tone strip, and I get those from Quill Creations. I haven't really found a whole lot I like with these two-tone strips. I've seen other people produce some beautiful things, but I have not used them a lot in my pieces yet. I'm sure I'll come up with something, but they were just so pretty, I had to buy them and put them in my arsenal. So that one I did on a comb. One of the things about doing it on a husking board that I like to point out that you can also control a little bit on a comb is that if you start on one of the outside pieces and curve around, you're going to have a certain amount of length between each loop. So when I did this one, I skipped one tooth on the comb, but you can skip 2 or 3 in the middle. You don't have to make your loops that close together. But when I make my loops on a comb, it's usually because I want to outline another piece and make it look lacy. So I don't like to skip a lot of them, but if you're going to make these on a comb, you might want to skip a couple teeth just to give yourself a little bit of room to make your bend. Okay, and I also like to show people that you can achieve the same types of shapes without buying multiple tools. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of trial and error and a little bit of practice, but you don't have to buy all those tools, especially when you're first starting out. This is a comb I got on Amazon. It is a little $3 pet grooming tool. I know that there are some tools out there, Super Looper or whatever. It's the exact same thing. It's metal teeth of a comb. No need to spend extra money. I think those things run about $9. And if you have a comb at your house that has straight teeth, use that. You can use any comb you have. I have flea combs. I've used cutting combs from when I cut hair. I've got styling combs I've used. So just to be aware, you don't have to. Okay, so I've started my loop. I better back up so you can see what I've done. And I've just chosen a tooth in the middle. I didn't count them, but I'm gonna end up with 8 on either side just because I've done this a million times. But I'm gonna skip this middle tooth right here so that I don't have a big gap between my loops. And I like this too because it shows how you're going back and forth. With the dual colors, it shows each pass that I do is gonna go back and forth, okay? So we're skipping the first tooth and we're gonna go down into and grab that second tooth, okay? So I started on this one right here, skipped one, and I came back up on the other. Now, when I go back this direction, I'm gonna go down in the same space where I came up on my original loop. So every time you go down, you're going down in the same space where you were before. When you come up, you should be on the other side of a new tooth, okay? It's otherwise relatively self-explanatory, but I'll show you how it goes. So down in the same, and then up for a new tooth. And this one, I'm gonna glue all the way, simply because I want to show the difference between the two, because I don't want to create a bend in this one. I just have a really slight arc. Okay, up through the new tooth, and we're gonna coat that, and we're gonna go down through the same tooth and up through the new one. Okay, and then from the other side, this is what it looks like. So I've got the 3 loops that I've created. This was my very first one. And then I've got 2 up here. So from this side, it would be, let me just put a little glue here. You're going to be coming up in the same spot. And then down on the new tooth. I like to do it from the other side so that I can keep this lined up. Because if this is lined up, your loops will be lined up. And it's harder to see that on the other side. So I like to do it sort of backwards, but your loops will be the same, and I promise you it'll be a little bit neater piece if you do it from the back side. But I'm not saying it's a rule, I'm just saying it'll be a little bit neater. One of the problems when we quill is if we aren't paying attention to those tiny little things as we move through a piece, through a quill, then your entire piece can be off and look lopsided depending upon how you're using each element. So I like to really pay attention to those tiny details as I go, so that when I'm putting the quills together into a larger piece, I don't get some sort of odd surprise that I wasn't prepared for. So there we go. And down again through the same tooth. Nice and straight, up through the new tooth. Okay. Down through the same tooth. I neglected to put the glue. My bad. There we go. I've used this particular pattern. I made a heart for a coworker. She loved purple, so or she still does love purple. She just doesn't know coworker anymore. And I made the purple heart and lined the entire thing with this pattern so that it looked nice and lacy, and it was gorgeous. It was just really super cute, and it hung on her bulletin board for quite some time. So at this point, I'm going to try double check here because the ending comes really quickly. There's usually some left over, and so I like to kind of look at my loops and make sure 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this is going to be the last pass on this side, and then this, because there won't be enough to do an even number of passes, so 8 I know works on my particular comb. Now, one thing to keep in mind is everybody's comb is different. Your comb may have teeth that are wider, so you may only be able to do 6 passes, or your teeth on your comb may be closer together and you can do 9. But this particular one, again, I know because I've done it a million times, is I can get 8 loops on each side and have it be even. So I don't want to create a 9th one on this side and not be able to create a 9th one on this side. So that's why I'm going to cut it. So then I'm just going to lay down a very, very thin layer of glue. Put it into place. And then I'm going to nip it off. And there we go. Now when you slide these off, use some care. If you just grab one end or the other, a lot of times your quill can stick to the comb. So I like to put my finger this way and or put my thumb under the very center, because the center is where all the tension is. So either way, but I like to just pull it off like that. And there it is. So if you were going to make it into, eventually to arc around a heart, I like to put a little bit of bend in it while the glue is still not 100% set, because you're going to have a smoother arc if you do it when your glue is not quite 100% set. So there we go. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it helped. You can also put these things together and create lots of different shapes, but I hope this helped. If you have any questions, post them below. And again, thank you for watching.